watched the Aquatech guy lose his barge with his excavator on it.
Oh.
Sir, and got out there. Matter of fact, they were scrounging to get that thing off of that barge, sunk, excavated on it, all right there on the north side of the hill.
How do you sink a barge?
I don't know if for some reason put those poles down beside it.
Yeah,
It had a break in its tags. It filled that barge up with all that waves. Put it on the bottom. It was
That ain't the first time it's happened.
Good afternoon. We'll call the meeting to order. This is our November 4th Walton County Redistricting Committee meeting, and at this time, this is our last scheduled meeting. I've been told that have another meeting about 58 minutes. Today,
So every 10 years, we have a census in the United States. And following that census, in the odd numbered year following the census, which historically is the year in which the census results are released, states go through the process of redistricting. Counties, as part of that, are required to submit their maps up to the Florida legislature by the end of that odd numbered calendar year for consideration. The redistricting process is not something that we get to just say, oh, well, we just want to come do it. We have to do it. And our goal is to assure equal representation of our population for our elected officials. This board sits as a joint board, appointed 5 members from the Board of County Commissioners and 5 members from the Walton County School District, because both the school board and the county commissioners have a map to adopt. They will each vote on the map. The maps do not have to be the same, but they are at this point the same. And as Bobby Beasley told us at our first meeting, he'd very much like us to have the same district boundaries for ease of use with their service. But what your task is to present a map back to the board that you recommend adoption of. And the factors to be considered, first and foremost, are as close to equal population among the districts and representation as we see. We are to look for compactness and contiguity among districts. We are to look for the maintenance of existing political or geographic boundaries, no racial or other ethnic minority misrepresentation. And then, while we are not bound by the constitutional amendment that went into effect after our last redistricting, I encourage the board to consider it persuasive that we are to neither draw a map with the intentional purpose of favoring or disfavoring a political party or an incumbent in the process. So we've gone through several different meetings. We have one map before us today. Maps were able to be submitted by committee members as well as members of the public. And so we are here today based on the motions of the board at the last meeting to present map numbered 16B, which you see on the wall, with a number of overlays to it, and to discuss any process related there too, but that's what we're here for. And then, of course, we can get to that as soon as you approve the minutes, Mr. Chairman. I promised you I'd make that shorter every single meeting after the first one, and I hope I've kept that.
Mr. Chairman, before we get started looking at 16B, I want to offer a motion that we limit the title submission to the I'm sorry. Motion is that we limit the submission of number of maps to the BCC to 3, because in the past we had submitted all of them just with our recommendation. And we're up to about 20 maps, and I don't want them to have to go through all of those.
7 maps that were
We voted to discard all but 16B, so there aren't any maps other than 16B to submit. We're not going to go back and revisit.
Are you making a motion to reconsider that, or what's the motion, Mr. Nelson?
Well, the motion, in the past, we've sent all the maps to the BCC. That's what we did in 2011. So the motion is that we limit those submissions to just 3 maps this time.
When we vote to discard, unless we're going to, which we've already voted to not reopen for any maps, once you vote to discard a map, it's not open for consideration.
You have to reconsider that if you want to go back.
Well, then I make a motion we reconsider so that we can get to the 3 maps that we're going to send to the BCC, so they'll have to review 26 maps.
Second.
Yeah, I'd like to have a conversation about that. Thank you for that second.
We have a motion and a second. Committee will discussion. Committee first.
So I do have a comment toward that. So when Boots McCormick asked me to be on this committee, I accepted it for a couple of reasons. One is I wanted to help the county. 2 is I'm in the process of district in Freeport. I want to see how the process is. Well, I'll know what's good and what's bad. I'm glad Councilman Martin's in here because he might can help me with this. Being from a councilman, a past councilman, I can look at it both ways. So if I'm a councilman, I think that if you come to me with one map and say, this is it, you got no other choices, well then you've taken my choice out of it. You've taken my thoughts, my everything out of it. I can't even help with any of the process. And so I feel like as a city manager, I would be doing my council a disservice by bringing the one map and saying take it or leave it, basically. And I know that the city of Freeport elected all my council members because they trusted them. They trusted their decision making. That's why they're there. And if I take all that away from them, well then I'm not elected. They're going to go by what I think, and that's it. I'm up here to give y'all my best foot forward, my best opinion. That's all I can do. Y'all do the same. I feel like if we do one map to the commissioners, we've done them a disservice because they have no choice. The county elected all of our commissioners because they trusted them. They trusted what they're doing, trusted their voice. I've taken their voice away from them, and I'm I'm glad that you did motion that, because that has been bothering me since I left here. Y'all all know that I voted nay when we said we're not going to accept more maps. And I started not even come, to be honest with you. But Bruce McCormick asked me to do this job, and I'm going to finish it. So with that being glad, I'm glad you got a first and a second for this conversation, because I really think if we don't take 3 maps, and I'm not saying 3 maps that are just so identical that you can't see it, you're having to find out where the difference is. You got to take them 3 maps so they can look at, let them mull it over, and put their best foot forward. That's all I got to say. Thank you.
Further discussion?
At the last meeting, when I had 16B and 16C up here, I actually asked the question, Clay, can we submit more than 1 map? And basically the consensus of this commission at that meeting was no, we were going to do 1 map, and we picked 16B. To reopen it now, after we have gone through gyration after gyration of map, in which we, and to kind of go through the history that I was here, we started out to get 2 districts totally south of the bay. Then there was this issue about how do you deal with having a little bit of District 1 south of the bay, and we were splitting up Point Washington, and somebody came up with the map to move it to Origins. Then the next meeting, we had the issue of somebody brought up that they didn't want to split up Oakwood Hills. So we worked on a map to try to keep Oakwood Hills all together. Then we had the issue of it didn't work with having the cities all contiguous because they keep amending and it didn't really work. So we decided to go to major roads, which all culminated in the last meeting where everybody on this board sat here and voted on a map. And then we voted to close all the maps. And that all we were going to do at this meeting was to look at the overlays and tweak it. So I'm wondering, what exactly happened in the last week? That now we hear this opening it up to 3 of all of these maps that we have refined for, what, the last month? And now we don't even have them in front of us. So we're going to open it back up. What, are we going to hold another meeting where we're going to go through all 20-something maps and argue over which of those 3 go to the commission? The commission has a choice. When they get this map, if they, within the parameters of the law that I've talked about a lot in this last 2 meetings, they can change things. Now, if somebody makes an attempt to put in a map through the commission that is, as I've heard, 5 districts that run from the Alabama line to the Gulf of Mexico, I guarantee it'll be challenged because I'll challenge it. And it won't pass muster because it'll go to Tallahassee, and Judge Mark Walker won't uphold it because it'll violate representational equality. So I don't understand what we're doing here, why we would reopen it, and if we wanted 3 maps, why that wasn't the discussion the entire time, and why everyone on this commission, including you, voted to strike all these other maps. If we'd all along been working on 3 maps, we could have been doing just that all along. But we're not doing it. We chose to strike everything down to 1 map.
And everything you said is exactly true, 100%. No doubt, yes. But I can tell you, the more that I look in it and talk to my counselors, my councilmen, and how we're doing this process, this is what was brought to me. And whether this board does the thing or not, that's up to the board. That's just my voice, what I'm saying. I totally agree that it was my understanding and my wishes at the very beginning. I think that we should make 2 solely across the bay. I brought that up at the very beginning, the very first meeting. That was me that brought that up the very first time. And I'm not saying that I'm not sticking with that at all. I'm just saying that I feel like that the county commissioners need a choice. That's all I'm saying. Now, whether or not y'all decide we want to give them the choice of whole, that's up to each individual one of y'all. I just have to say what I need to say for my benefit only. That's it.
Thanks, sir. Mr. Gilbert.
Along this same lines, one of my, while I know it's not, it cannot be entirely a consideration that we would address a map from keeping commissioners or school board members in a district. That has been a concern of mine from the get-go. When we start talking about tweaking a map, I'm not sure, I definitely wouldn't be in support of us dragging out 27 maps and sending them to the county commission and the school board. But I would potentially be in support of taking this map as it stands and tweaking it in some way so that we could consider a way to keep as many of our commissioners and school board members in their district.
Thank you, Mr. Gilbert. Any other discussion at this time from the committee?
Yeah, I have one comment.
Mr. Ryan?
It's my understanding that this is just an advisory board and you give this to the county commissioners. And really, they get to vote. They're the ones who are actually voting on yes or no, and they have the authority to change lines. Is that correct?
Within limitations.
Within limitations.
What are those limitations?
Well, I mean, I think what Mr. Shipman says is correct. They can't draw a map that's illegal, but of course they can adopt a map that's illegal. It's subject to challenge. But the reality is, I'm going to say what I said last time. Mr. Shipman, I believe, is correct. He did ask me, could you submit multiple maps? I'm going to say right now, the board can. It is, again, my position, Mr. Laird and I have talked about this a couple of times over, that whatever does go up to the board should be stamped with this is our preferred or recommended choice of those. Whether you submit one map, 3 maps, or 30 maps, I believe in doing your job as an advisory board, you should say, we think this is the best or this is our preferred choice. But no, it is certainly to the board's discretion if you wish to submit more than one map for decision. So what we said last time, the board voted to move forward. Got a motion for reconsideration on the table now to reconsider, which would put us back before that motion.
And the motion is to reconsider every single map that we struck, including those that were just blatantly illegal, like the one that had.
I didn't understand that to be the motion.
Yeah, restate that if you would, Mr. Nelson.
I don't believe that was my motion. After hearing all this discussion, do you have it written down perchance?
So it would be reconsideration of the motion that was to approve 16B as the sole map, is what I'm understanding
Yes.
the reconsideration is. So it's not saying you're going to send all 20. If this motion passes to reconsider, the board's going to then discuss what it does send. And it doesn't mean you don't send 16B. The reconsideration is as to sending this one map or not, as it appears, is that what I'm understanding the motion to be?
That's the understanding. I don't have any problem.
Is that who
I
made the
don't have any
second?
problem with 16B. I voted for it.
Is that the second?
Well, then what is
Got a
the
motion and a
maps
second.
that we're considering here?
That would be if this motion passes, y'all have to talk about it. Y'all only have one map before you, so.
Any more, any more discussion at this time from the committee members? We'll go to the public if there are none. There are none at this time. Yes, sir. Please come forward.
Jazz Galloway, Galloway. I think 16B, I think it will survive judicial scrutiny, is my new favorite vocabulary word. Sadly, though, this week, it doesn't survive citizen scrutiny, doesn't survive the school board scrutiny, doesn't survive the BCC scrutiny, so we're putting the cart before the horse. The decision y'all have to make, do you want to set the BCC and the school board up to succeed or to fail? Pure and simple. And rather than, we've been putting the cart before the horse this whole time. First, decide on the quantity. Just decide, are we going to do 1 or 3 or 10, or just make a motion on that? And then you start talking about Is it gonna be old maps? Is it gonna be new maps? Blah, blah, blah. Till y'all get to the quantity, we're just wasting time. So please, you need to divide up, these next decisions into small little parts. First, decide on how many maps. Make a motion for one, if that's gonna be it, or three, or whatever.
Well, I
That
think
would be what I would suggest.
we already
Thank you.
passed a motion on one, so we'd have to
Yes,
do
ma'am.
something different.
Ms. Morano.
Good afternoon, Barbara Morano. As you know, I've attended every meeting since you started. And Charlie, Mr. Simmons, I respect what you were saying, but you were appointed, all of you were appointed by your specific commissioner. So there should have been a conversation going on from the very beginning till now with the commissioners, with the school board members. That's outside, that's okay. It's not, you're doing nothing wrong from the Sunshine Law. I was told that the last meeting was going to be fireworks. I was told that the first time when I came here. Now that's interesting because I'm hearing and I'm seeing some fireworks. I'm seeing some changes that I didn't see before, which is considering other maps. Where are you going to choose these three? You're going to have another meeting to get public input to choose the three that are going to go before these commissioners, and you're going to have another meeting. It doesn't make any sense. Your commissioner trusted you. You mentioned trust. They trusted you to make a decision. They trusted you to go back and have a conversation with them. And if they didn't like what 16B or all the others, they could have said, it's not keeping commissioners in their own district. And if you want to keep a commissioner in their own district, look at Miramar. Miramar has been saying all this time, they want a commissioner who lives south of the bay. This commissioner, unfortunately for Miramar, does not. If this map is drawn, if he wants to run, he goes south of the bay. But that's not the issue. We asked for 2 districts south of the bay, and we got them. And now you're talking about changing it? And how are you going to pull up 3 different maps? I'm flabbergasted that we're talking about this now. I'm shocked. I'm disappointed. You were appointed. You made great decisions. You had conversations. And now we're back almost to square one again. I don't get it. I'm sorry. I think this should be moved on. We have to get out of here by 5 o'clock. You're not going to even make getting out of here by 5 o'clock with everything you have to do on this map. Where do we go from here? Where do we go from here? Very disappointing. I'm very disappointed. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and members. You asked what changed? Politics changed. That's what changed. You went back, you talked to your folks, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. I agree with Ms. Morano on that. The problem is the committee was established by the 2 boards to take the politics out of it. You look at numbers. You got 15,000 here, you got 12,000 here. That's not right. We got to fix the numbers. You draw the lines, you get some guidance. You try to make them as contiguous as possible. You take the politics out of it. That was the charge that y'all originally had, and now, here at the 11th hour, we're going to bring politics back into it. That's exactly what you're doing. I mean, I understand it. I don't like it. I don't think anybody likes it. But you're bringing the politics back into it and saying, well, I want this guy to be in this district, or this person to be in that district, or I need to move this line. No, you did your job. You did your job that you were charged with by the 10 elected representatives. Give us a map, give us a recommendation. You voted last time to 16B. I submitted a map. I thought my map was better than 16B, but y'all didn't think that. And that's fine. That's why y'all came together. A point that I would like to clarify, because I don't remember, but I thought Mr. Nelson voted against limiting it to 1 map last time. Is my memory incorrect?
The minutes show a 9-0 vote to discard the map 16C and retain 16B as the sole map.
Okay, but I thought there was a motion before that, because he wanted to be allowed to bring, not to limit it to one map, to bring in other maps, and I thought he voted against that, because that's the motion.
The other motion that was made was to close submission of any additional maps as of tonight, and that November 4th would be strictly to review the overlay of 16B.
Right, and he voted against that.
Right.
As did I.
Okay, as did you. Well, I'm not a lawyer. There's two lawyers here, but I do have a fair knowledge of Robert's Rules of Orders based on my other three jobs. And if you're not on the prevailing side, you can't bring that back up. So your motion to open it back up, and I would
Well, I
defer.
think that's what Mr. Shipman was getting at earlier. That's why I asked Mr. Nelson to make it clear what he was stating, because the bottom line is, he's asking to reconsider retaining solely 16B. We haven't addressed what we're doing with the submission of additional maps.
Okay, 'cause
So
if
I mean, the bottom line is the motions are that you have a motion, you have a second. At this point in time, the second, if for whatever reason the primary motion fails, and that's a point the chairman believes the primary motion cannot be made because he voted against the motion to close submission, the chairman turns to the second and asks, does she wish to stand as the primary motion? And then you have to find somebody else to make a second. I believe that would be the proper parliamentary procedure in that scenario, correct, Mr. Bagby?
That's my understanding, but
So
I'll
it'd
let
be to you,
you-
Mr.
I'll let-
Chairman.
I'll let
If
the-
you feel it's a question, the second can certainly stand as the motion if it is so willing.
That's above my pay grade.
Well, that's what
And I
you
will-
asked the second. Would,
I will ask the committee member who seconded that if you
I will stand.
stand.
so you'd ask for another second?
I'll second that motion.
He can't if he's,
No, you can't make the motion. There's nothing about the second rule. There's nothing that prevents him from seconding it, but if that's the objection of the committee, it makes it, we can make this very simple. If nobody else is gonna second it, it's gonna die for a lack of a second. So if nobody other than,
I'll second for, to continue the
Yeah.
discussion.
Okay.
So-
well, you have a second you have a new motion and you second, and neither, and both of those voted in favor, so procedurally, I believe you're now fine at this point.
Yeah, exactly.
So we have a substitute motion made by Ms. Amanda Ray and a second to the substitute motion by Mr. McIntyre.
can we clarify, I'm still confused over what exactly
I am too.
is the motion. Is the motion that we're going to take some of these other maps that we voted to discard and undiscard them, which will require yet another motion? Or is it that we're just
Separate motion.
opening it up to any map at all?
The bottom line is what I understood the point was to not send a single map to the board was what the original motion was when I asked Mr. Nelson to clarify that he is undoing the request to send just a single map on. So the motion will be to reconsider whatever action limits this board to a single map. Should that motion pass, I believe the next step for the committee would be to determine how and what maps it will select to send on. And so that's the next part, if this motion passes, whether it be, you're saying more than one, so it's gonna have to be a number above one, is all I can tell you. You don't have the option of sending zero.
But the key there, Clay, is the motion that I made at the end was that we would not consider any additional maps.
And per the argument, we're now seeing a reconsideration of that request is what it appears.
All right, so instead of it being limited to all of these maps that we voted to discard, what effectively we're doing tonight is saying we're going to consider brand-new maps.
No, sir, that's not the motion yet on the floor. That would be only if this motion passes. That could be considered. There's nothing that would stop the board upon reconsideration from doing so. However, the committee could just as well say, we're going to look back at all, however many, 27 maps Mr. Laird said there were.
28.
28.
I think I found.
So wouldn't that actually be, Clay, the appropriate motion would be you take whatever maps that we voted to discard and have a motion to reconsider discarding whatever that particular map was?
I'm not going to tell the committee how to make a motion, Mr. Shipman. I think the motion is perfectly fine to reopen the discussion about sending more than one map to the board. Last meeting ended with there's going to be one map, 16B transmitted. The motion is to reopen that, is to reconsider that and to send more. And that's the motion and second, as I understand it,
Well,
Mr.
then,
Chairman.
I want to make sure that the minutes reflect, since I think that we're heading toward an election districting challenge, that I stated on the record that I believe this motion is improper the way it's done.
So, Mr. Shipman, what do you believe the proper motion would be, since you're asserting you're going to seek an election challenge?
I think that if you're wanting to consider any of these maps that we've already voted to discard, somebody needs to be in here with a particular map, raising an issue that we reconsider our vote to discard.
So, Ms. Ray, while I believe that can be added to the motion, Ms. Ray, is it your motion that you would suggest that we reconsider prior maps as well as new maps to allow submission of additional maps to the board? Would you make that part of your motion?
Shouldn't we open it to us voting first and then go from there?
I firmly believe you can do it in two parts. Mr. Shipman believes you need to do it in one, and so I'm saying if we want to do it all in one, I'm also considering the fact that we're sitting here at 4:30 up against a clock that, as far as a time limit, it might be more prudent just to roll it all into one. Mr. Shipman saying that'd be an appropriate motion in his opinion. So you're welcome to make that amendment, or we can do it in two parts.
I think it's an inappropriate motion to say we're considering new maps because the public would have been noticed at after the last meeting.
Then, Mr. Shipman, I'm going to tell you right now, you're mistaken on this point.
No, I'm not.
Yes, sir, you are. She can reconsider the board's
Well,
prior
then
action, and then the board has to
probably,
go back.
Clay, you and I probably, if somebody pulls some shenanigans, will be on the opposite side in federal court in Tallahassee over this.
I think that's quite interesting that as a member of the committee, you're threatening to sue the county and the school district over this process, Mr. Shipman.
Yeah,
Well, what I
well,
would say is, Mr.
what I
Chairman, there
think
is a
is-
motion on the floor and a second to reconsider.
Second. And let's finish hearing from Mr. Bagby so we can get this on the road.
Yeah, and
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Let's all keep our tone
Yeah.
where we need to keep them. We're all good here. We're not going out
Yeah.
back. Let's just all tone down.
So obviously, there's a lot of passion. To get back to the point that I was trying to make, the politics shouldn't have a place in y'all's deliberations. They've crept in here, and this is the first time I've sensed that they've really crept in here. Kind of thought a little bit last time maybe they were creeping in, but y'all are here to do a job. You know, just hit it down the middle. Look at, do you have equal distribution? Are you putting, I won't say illegal, inappropriate numbers of groups of people in a different area? Or are you making it discontinuous? Or, you know, follow the guidance that you were originally given, because the politics gets decided when it goes to the school board and when it goes to the BCC. And if they don't like the map, as Mr. Atkinson's told you, they don't have to have the same map. They can draw those lines any place they want to draw them. Your job, your charge that you were given was to come up with a recommended course of action, a recommended map. You've done that. It's a good map, equal distribution, and it follows all the guidelines that you were given. I think everybody here is just asking, do your job. You've done your job. You know, I'm kind of surprised that we're going down all these rabbit holes, but nothing surprised me. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bagby. Yes, ma'am, you've been patient back there, please.
Hi, Kat Pellegrino, like the water, Pellegrino. I just have to say one thing. Let's just, like he said, politics, I agree, stays out of this. Common sense, we have a map, okay? I'm sorry the school board's not here. They didn't have the overlays when you first did this. They should have the overlays of the schools. That makes sense to me. This is ridiculous. We just need to press on with the one map, push it forward, and let them decide. And then if it's no good, we'll start over, whatever. But right now, we have 28 minutes. Let's just push forward.
Thank you, Ms. Pellegrino. Ma'am, were you, yeah. Okay, I wasn't sure if you had your hand up or not.
My name is Letitia Krishan, and I just have one quick question. I agree with you, Mr. Ryan. My question is, consider the population graphic at the bottom of this map. The illustration shows that most African-American population is located within District 2. That's 1,951 individuals. The second population of African-Americans is in District 3, followed by District 1, and followed by District 4 and District 5. Have any committee members considered balancing the population of African Americans between District 2 and District 3? While I know you're trying to balance the whole population within the county, these two districts have the highest population of African Americans. Have you thought that this could bring a more equal balance of African Americans and move 2 board members out of the same district? Because it seems that Mr. Bill is in District 2 and Ms. Kim is in District 2. We need to make sure that we keep our school board members. I have always said that our community and children are vital, and these board members contribute to their success. Let us show our children that we are about making their future decisions by keeping our great school board members. If we can do this, we can be significant, moving to the balance our population and board members. That's just my opinion.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Martin, and then we'll have Ms. Johns after that. Mr. Martin, were you going to speak?
And I really apologize before I even opened my mouth for coming way at the tail end, last minute, literally. First comment I would have is I think it would be a huge mistake to let 28 minutes or 5 o'clock make a decision that's going to affect our county for 10 years. That would be bad. So I'm sure there's another room. I'm sure there's another day. You are an advisory board, but I'm not sure what giving the BCC different options would, I don't know how that's a bad thing.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. Ms. Johns.
Donna Johns, JOHNS. Thank you. I appreciate everything that you all have done. I know most of you have worked really, really hard on this, but I've come to most of these meetings, not all of them, but I was under the impression that we were there for a purpose, and the purpose was to narrow it down to a certain map. And that's what the whole idea was for every meeting. And I sat through meetings where we discarded maps, not to bring them back, to discard them, to throw them in the trash, to move forward with a map that we could move forward with. Now, I understand that it appears that the last meeting, when they had a few maps that they were going to go with, that at that time, they probably should have had the overlays done so that we could have worked that process out at that time. That wasn't done. We have been here, we have been fighting. I'm in Miramar Beach, not represented by a commissioner. And I would like to be represented by a commissioner. I'd like 2 commissioners on the south end. I don't know what these new maps might come up with. I think the county commissioners asked you all to sit in these positions so they didn't have to do all of this. I think that's the job that they asked you to do, and you've done it, and you've done it well, and we've come down to one map, and it's time to do the overlay on this map and to move forward with this and present this map to the commissioners. I, too, was told something was going to be pulled at this meeting, and I'm very disappointed. I do not like politics being involved in things like this. This is something that was supposed to be for the community and for this board. And for politics to be coming in at this last moment is absolutely wrong. It's a slap in the face to the citizens, and it's really kind of a slap in your faces putting you on this board to go through all of this to turn around and pull maps out of the trash. That is wrong. I beg you to stick with the one map that we have, 16B, move forward with that, present that to the commissioners. If they don't like it, there can be something else done at that time. But they asked you to do your job. You did it. We were asked to do our job as citizens. We've done it. And it's really ridiculous to think that we're going to go back and dig out of the trash for things that have already been declined. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Johns. Anyone else? Any more public comments? None there. Any more discussion from the committee?
Can I ask something, please?
Yes, ma'am.
With me, it's not politics. With me, I was put on here to represent approximately 7,300 people in this whole Walton County, no matter where they are. And in the past week, I've heard from a lot of those people that can't come and be here. They're at work, they're with their children, they're at a ball game, whatever the situation may be. And a lot of them didn't even know that this was happening. So in the past week, I've heard from a lot of people that do not have a voice. And for me, I am their voice today. And they saw a problem. They brought the problems to me. And that's my job today, is to ask this board for everybody to have a voice, not just the people in this room. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ray.
Everybody has had an opportunity to come to these meetings. There's also been Zoom. Every single person in this entire county, and we've moved it from Paxton to Defuniak, 2 in Freeport, and 1 in South Walton. Everybody that wanted to come could come. A lot of people in here, including myself, have jobs too, and a million other things we could be doing, but we choose to be here because it's important to us. Our voices should be heard too.
Ma'am in the back row.
I thank you for all of your hard work. I think you've got a great map. You're getting cold feet at this point, maybe. I don't know. But I think, and I hear what you're saying, that people keep calling you, but that is always going to be the case. You are always going to have somebody calling you after the fact about anything you decide. And you can go back in your life experiences and think about that. It happens all the time. So you just have to make a decision and move forward. You are tasked with a job. You did a great job. Let's just move along. If the BDC doesn't like it, they don't have to vote for it. They can say, you know what, you need to redo that map. It's not appropriate. But I think you will always hear from people after the fact. So I don't think that's legitimate. And I understand that, you want to represent these people, and that's great. But that's always going to be the case in any situation. So.
Patrick, I got a
Thank you.
comment. One comment, please.
Okay. We have a committee comment. Mr. Shipman.
I would have, had this been brought up about picking 3 maps, I would have the whole time been working on alternatives. And I don't know about other committee members, but as soon as I got on this committee, I spent a great deal of time having people call me up, have come into my office in the morning, and they're sitting around in the waiting room in my office wanting to talk to me. I spent hours and hours and hours. This is not about the election next year. It's about what our political boundaries are going to be for the next 10 years. And I also spent a lot of time reading what the law is on this area. And one of the important points is what's called representational equality. Representational equality means that, and I'm going to use an example of where it works in this county. I'm going to call out Commissioner Glidewell. People hear about him. He's always talking about things for Paxton, for Darlington, for Glendale. And you know what? That's his job, because he lives in the district that represents those people. If you read the cases about representational equality, the whole idea is so that the things that local government is supposed to do, we get so lost in arguing over development in this county, we forget about everything else they're supposed to do, like make sure that our roads work and that our infrastructure works. And so you read the cases, it talks about you live in Freeport, you got to drive through the terrible intersection of Highway 20 and 331. Those people have a commissioner who lives in that area and has to deal with it. And that's what we're doing here. Had we wanted to have 3 maps, I would have worked on 3 maps. And as far as undistricting people, I'll go ahead and say, for me, undistricting Trey Nick has not been easy. I'm one of the people who talked Trey Nick into running. If anybody wants to go back and research the election records, not only did I personally contribute money to his campaign, a lot of his campaign was financed by friends of mine, clients of mine, and my law partners. So I like Trey Nick. I don't want to undistrict him, but the map for the next decade doesn't work to put Basin Bayou in District 4, if that's what this is all about. I am mystified that we're having this discussion, and if we're having this discussion, I am mystified as to what are the other two maps that everybody wanted to talk about to bring to the commission, because I hadn't seen those either. So I don't really know how we're going to get this done tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Shipman. So if we could get the motion restated for clarity, please. We have a motion and a second.
I believe what we've said is the motion is to reconsider the submission of a single map to the board, and which is basically reconsidering the final two motions made at the last meeting, which is that. And so if that motion passes, and I want to cover Mr. Shipman's point because I want to be very clear about what happens. If the motion fails, we're going to talk about final overlay edits on 16B and what it takes to transmit it, whether that finishes tonight, after the DRB meeting, if we all sit around outside in the parking lot, or at a new date, I'll let y'all figure that out. Alternatively, if the motion passes, the next act for the board would be to determine what the process of reviewing additional maps for submittal to the school board and board of county commission is. Is it reviewing previously discarded maps? Is it reviewing previously discarded maps along with acceptance of new maps? But I completely agree the public has to have a chance to comment on whatever's going forward. So with all due respect, if somebody's sitting up there with a map in their pocket, they plan to whip out and say, here's map 2, and somebody whips out and says, here's map 3, we can't do that tonight, guys. So the first step is reconsideration of the submission of one map and closure of map submittals so that you can then discuss the next part of the process. Is that clear, Mr. Chairman?
Clear?
I hope.
I'm sorry, Mr. Simmons.
I hope, what he said.
So we have a motion and a second. Call to vote. All in favor of the motion indicate by aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Opposed.
Let's do it. We're going to need a roll call on that.
Yeah. How
Start
about-
from your left to right, your
Okay.
choice.
Mr. Simmons, your
Aye.
motion. Nay.
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 Well, I mean, I'm sorry. I was echoing what you said. I've already voted.
So that is 6-4. 6-4, aye.
Okay, motion passes.
So the next order of business for the committee, Mr. Chairman, will be to determine, probably need to go ahead and determine, are we going to open this up for review of just the prior map submitted or open it up for new map submittal? But what I would respectfully ask at 4:47 before we discuss that is, are we going to adjourn this meeting and wait for DRB and there's 6 items to finish, or are we going to reschedule? And if it is rescheduled, Ms. Cooper, how much time is needed for advertisement? So 10 days puts us on at least to November 14th. So it would have to be the week of the 14th of November if you wish to schedule a meeting to have that discussion.
I make a motion, we reschedule the meeting in November the 18th.
That'll be Thursday, November 18th. Can somebody check? I don't know, Mr. Mary, can you check the county calendar? I don't see
Throw
it.
something else out there.
Okay. All right,
So we have a motion.
for sure.
I'm sorry. We have a motion. Say that again.
To schedule another meeting for November the 18th.
To schedule
4
another,
PM.
another meeting for November the 18th. Is there a second?
Second.
Have a motion and a second. I'd like to state that I will not be here for that meeting, but you are the co-chair.
Oh, well.
So, I will be out of town.
there a time date that works better for you?
I am out of town that week.
It doesn't matter to me. I just was adding 14 days to the day.
Well, is there a date that we have to have the work done of the commission?
The commission does not, the Board of County Commissioners must submit them by the end of the calendar year. It must be submitted in the odd numbered year. So ideally, well, listen, if you do November 18th at this point, there is no way to make the November 23rd BCC meeting, is there, Ms. Cooper? And I apologize, I don't have the school district calendar up in front of me, but so what you're looking at is you're basically giving them their first meetings in December for the school board and county commission. So I'd say November 18th is kind of your, we can't do next Thursday, it's Veterans Day.
22nd? Do we have to do it on a Thursday, or can we do it a different?
No, I can tell you, we can't, somebody said the 10th, we can't do the 10th in this because unfortunately we have a planning board meeting in this room. Because I know that was rescheduled. I'm looking at that noticed here. We gotta have 10 days of notice, so your options are the 15th, and I don't know if you have anything that date. 16th is a scheduled council meeting of one of the city. 17th is open. Excuse me. So you're to the 17th, 18th, or if somebody were to do Friday on the 19th, but the motion is for the 18th.
Yeah, we have a motion and a second.
I'll withdraw my motion if you think there's another date available.
Could you do the 22nd, Patrick?
I would note that we have city council meetings that night. We have Board of County Commissioners on the 23rd, but if that is the committee's wishes, staff will prepare and be available. But we do have elected boards meeting on those nights, and that was when we originally set it, was to set it on non-elected board meeting night.
16th available, is that a board meeting?
Yes, it's a city of Paxton City Council meeting. Third Tuesday, yeah. Oh, that's, on the 16th, we have public hearings down there,
Ask
so.
a question?
You had a question.
Yeah, I just had a question. I know you're checking the availability of this. This room's not gonna be big enough. I'm just gonna tell you. No, I'm serious. Y'all either need to do it at South Annex, or you need to do it at the BCC, because they will bring busloads of people from the south end of this county to look you in the eye and say, why won't you give us we have over 40% of the population south of the bay, and you won't give us 2 commissioners. You got a commissioner, I won't even go where he lives, but you need to look them in the eye. You want input from citizens? I appreciate that. I'm all about that in one of my other lives. You're gonna get more than you ask for, so you need a bigger boat. I'm just telling you. Thank you.
So we have a motion and a second
For the
for the
18th.
18th.
Is everyone
discussion.
else available on the 18th?
Yeah.
Call to vote.
I would ask that we amend it to hold it in the South Walton Annex.
No, the chairman called for the vote, so let's do that, then we can take the location up next.
Call to vote on the motion to hold the meeting on the 18th, 4 o'clock here at Freeport. All in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
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 All opposed? So we have it for the 18th. Is there,
I make a motion it be held at the South Walton Annex.
Well, the motion was just to hold it in Freeport per the chairman's announcement, and it just passed unanimously.
All right, well then I make a motion that we amend it to hold it in the South Walton Annex.
Second.
yeah, motion and a second.
I believe Mr. Bagby spoke. Was that the only public comment? I'm not looking behind me, but I know we have one.
So we have a motion to amend the motion, is that what, the
Yeah.
amended motion? Yeah. For South Walton, and there was a second by Mr. Cooper. Public comment regarding that.
Is that room available, Mary?
We need this meeting in South Walton, and I want to respond to Ms. Ray. Again, we have Zoom, we had video, we had people who come here. You all of a sudden got bombarded this week and everything turned right over. This is all about politics. This is all about shenanigans. I told you we were disappointed. We need representation. I remember the first meeting, Robert, I stood up here, I said, let the chips fall where they may. I said that.
Absolutely.
And I said, we needed representation, and we do not have representation if this map is not going forward. And all right, the motion on the floor is in South Walton, definitely South Walton, definitely.
Any more comment from the public regarding the meeting, location, and date? None there, committee? Any more discussion?
Just one thing to say, because now we've had two people step up here and say that everybody in Walton County could comment due to Zoom. I can't get Zoom at my house unless I go sit in my truck and drive a quarter of a mile up the street so I can get a decent signal. Excuse me,
He has
excuse
the
me.
floor, Ms. Morano. Thank you.
Okay. So to sit here and to say something to another member about, hey, everybody could have got on Zoom if they wanted to, I think it's that people don't realize the limitations that we have. That's all. I just want to make sure everybody needs to understand it. We're finally rolling out some internet up there through a process with the county that we've been working on for half a decade. But it's been a long time coming.
Mr. Chairman,
Thank you.
haven't all these meetings been published appropriately so the public has known that these meetings exist?
As far as I know, yes, sir.
So everyone has the ability to come to these meetings, Robert. I mean, I understand, I get it, and I appreciate everybody's opinion, but
And that's not, I'm just saying to use Zoom. No, people don't come to these meetings. I understand that. That's what happens.
point.
All right, so we have a motion and a second, moving the meeting to Santa Rosa Beach on the 18th. Call to vote. All in favor of that amended motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Nay.
We have 2 nay, motion carries.
All right.
So the meeting will be in Santa Rosa Beach on the 18th at 4 p.m.
All right, I would like to make a motion that whatever maps we're considering in addition to 16B must be submitted by the end of next week, or whatever that date
I
is.
would you prefer Thursday?
Can we limit the number of maps in any way?
By the,
9th, 10th.
well, no, he's saying he's off Thursday, so you're saying the 12th would be the end of that week, would you? Do you-
Next week's the only day.
So you're not there Friday either?
No.
What about Monday the 15th, Kevin? Close of business Monday the 15th?
And that those
And
are all-
I would encourage, and I'll say this for the record for everybody, anybody wishing to submit maps, you can obviously sit down and let Mr. Laird work with you to draw the maps, but to the extent that you come in with sketching or anything, it probably helps expedite the process.
And to the extent any committee member wants to bring up some map that we voted to discard, I'd ask that has to be submitted at the same time, and that we all get these maps before we walk in here that night.
No, I agree. I don't believe we can pull any off the discard pile that are not in the agenda packet. So if y'all go through everything Monday with him, we'll be able to have an agenda packet Tuesday evening. But that's 48 hours notice. That's the best we can do. So Monday would be your drop dead.
Okay,
And
Mr. Shipman, you were making that in the form of a motion.
Yes, sir.
So would you wrap that up?
My motion is that any additional maps and any maps that have been discarded that are going to be brought up for reconsideration must be submitted by Monday the 15th, and that all the committee members receive whatever those maps are by Tuesday the 16th, so that we can review them.
Would you, Mary, would you be agreeable if we did it by 9 a.m. Wednesday morning for staff time?
I mean, the problem is, Clay, I actually do try to practice law. And
As do I, but we're both sitting here.
And I'm sure that, as has happened up to now, some people will want to call me or parade into my office and talk about whatever these maps are, so the sooner the better.
If we'll let Ms. Cooper stay, I believe there's a meeting on the 16th. So we have a special meeting in South Walton of the Board of County Commissioners on that date, starting at 1 o'clock to deal with the beach activities ordinance as well as the selection of the MVP. You and I will both be there, Mr. Shipman.
Yeah.
So I'm asking for some courtesy for our staff who must also be there to not have to rush home
What
afterwards.
is Wednesday, the 17th?
Would 9 a.m. be acceptable?
But if we happen to get them earlier,
We can submit them as soon as they come in. We can do a running submittal to everybody.
yeah, if we could do that, that would be helpful.
That's fine to submit them as they come in. Kevin, you circulate them to Mary. Mary will put them out and we can upload them as well. Jason, we can separate it's uploaded to a site for access. So we'll put them on iCompass where it's available to people as they pop up one by one. So that it's a running open to everybody.
And could I ask, since we had this overlay issue, that these maps at our final meeting have all the overlay stuff on them?
That's why we're asking for that time, yes.
And since the lady in the back brought up,
Well, the question there is, that format, they're roughly about 3 cents.
yeah, but
We can omit these. Kevin, we could probably do is we can omit the prison population included map. We can do that without district boundaries drawn. We can just show the numbers. And we can talk about that dynamically at the meeting once you narrow it down. And then we can just do the census block data without the districts overlaid, just because we usually always have that map displayed, but it doesn't actually have to have districts drawn into it. That's not one of the overlay maps anyway. So it's just those three.
and the one other question that isn't on any
Hold on,
of
Mr.
these
Shipman.
maps.
Mr. Shipman, hold on there just a second. We had a motion that you were clearing up.
Okay.
So is the motion clear for the record? Is there a second to the motion? So we have a motion and a second regarding the map deadline. Call to vote, public comment.
Question, will it be available to the public in
That-
real time also? Because.
Yeah. Yes,
Okay.
that's what we're saying, Mr. Bagby. We're going to dynamically upload them so they're available on the site.
Okay, and then you need to schedule another meeting, because your next meeting, you may have 20 maps, again, that you get to sort through, 40 maybe, that you get to sort through, because I'm going to go on Tuesday and work on a better map, okay? You're going to have the prison strike, or what Larry Jones called 10 years ago, the prison strike map, or whatever it's going to look like. You're going to have another 10 maps. So then you're going to have to neck it down, get it down to a manageable number, and you're either going to have a real long meeting there, or you're going to have to come back to look at all the other data on the one that you want to recommend. So you need to think about when you're going to have the meeting after the meeting on the 18th. Thank you.
Let me go ahead and say for the record, for anyone listening, for any committee member, for anyone in the room, if somebody comes in with a map that is horizontal or vertical bars only, it will be my strongest recommendation that that be thrown out immediately, because Mr. Shipman is correct. There is no way such a map passes constitutional muster. I don't need to look at the numbers first to tell you, but that's straight vertical bars, horizontal bars, diagonal bars running whichever way, left or right. That type of districting simply will not pass constitutional muster. We've not had one of those submitted yet, but we keep hearing about it, so perhaps we can save time and not have that. So I hope I'm sufficiently discouraging of that idea.
Any more public comment regarding the motion? Committee comment? Call to vote. All in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries.
Can I get one clarification real quick?
Go ahead, Robert.
When we did the earlier motion that re-looked at, or did the reconsideration, that then undid what we did as 16B being submitted, correct?
16B is not the only one to be submitted. 16B is still alive. What I would tell you is 16B is absolutely getting presented.
Well, that's what I want to make sure, if we need to make another motion, to make sure 16B is one of the three maps that is submitted.
I'll ask it this way, assuming you're agreeable, Mr. Chairman. Does anybody on the committee at this point object to keeping 16B as a standing submittal next time? And if you do, go ahead and do it now and let's sort it out. Otherwise, 16B is going to be back before you and we'll look at it with everything else.
Question on that. Gary, did we not discuss tweaking 16B? Didn't we put that in there?
Well, originally, we were going to come here tonight and look at these precincts in the schools and tweak it, but apparently we are, I guess, way beyond that. So I don't know. I don't.
You haven't voted it out. I think it's still alive, and I think it can be brought back.
I think
If I'm
it
not
needs
hearing
to
an
be
objection,
I just want to make sure that it's in the consideration that we make.
let's make it clear. Make that as a motion, and we'll move
Make a
on.
motion that that 16B be one of the maps of the three that we're submitting to the BCC.
Uh,
Other part of that question is.
Well, hold on. We got to have a motion. We need to see if there's a
I'll
second, and we're
second
running.
it.
Motion and a second. Discussion.
To Kevin, is there any way that we can have the computer service that you have in your office at the meeting in South Walk, to where if there's a problem with one of these maps, that we can sit in the room with the public there and all these board members, so we can look at it in real time and make little changes to make it to whatever we decide that that's what we want to do? Okay.
Came ready.
All right, so do we need to call this?
Any more comment? Public comment? None there. We have a motion and a second.
I do have one comment on map 16B. There is a small triangular piece of property at the intersection of County Highway 28 and 331 that is in, that's colored as being in District 2, but it's west of 331. It should have been in District 3, but I would like to be able to change that. It is a tiny little speck of property. There are 3 people in it.
Make a motion to make that change.
So we have a motion and a second.
In light of his motion, Mr. Nelson, would your motion be to bring back 16B with that change for
Yes.
consideration of submittal?
Yes.
Okay, so there's a motion and a second.
So we're not locked into it without that change? That's what I'm trying to verify.
Everything can still be tweaked with the overlays, just like we discussed last time.
Yes.
In other words, and I know we're not here, and I don't know how it come up that 16B, just because I asked to open it back up. The only reason I asked for it to be opened back up is just because of having the ability to offer more than one to the county commission. That's the only reason. Not because 16B isn't the map. They may choose 16B. But can we still tweak with the overlay, Mr. Laird?
At the next meeting,
Yes.
Yes, absolutely.
Open ourselves to this map as it sits, we still can tweak.
That's why I was clarifying Mr. Nelson's motion is we're going to make that edit, but it's going to be subject to further edit.
Yes.
But 16B is coming back. It's not out the window.
I want to make sure, because that's,
All right. So do we need the motion this time? to
Let-
do that
If that's
revision?
his motion, if
Okay.
Mr. Shipman, if that's your second, let's go ahead and just put it on the record and allow
Okay.
everybody to get on with their
All right,
meeting.
so there was a motion and a second for a small revision at the northwest corner of County Highway 2A and Highway 331. Discussion regarding that revision. Any public comment?
One thing on the tweaks, and this is actually why I came here tonight, so I want to make this point in case something happens between now and the 18th. 20 years ago, and when I said this last time, you're proactive, you're projecting the future, not the past. 20 years ago, there was not a high school in South Walton below the bay. Think about that now. Just 20 years ago. Everybody here is over 20. Now, almost 50% of the people in this county, not quite, live south of the bay. So where the schools are, where the parks are, that's for people to figure out in the next 10 or 20 years as the population grows in the county. So on these little tweaks, you know, this tweak, yeah, I got it. That's a Scribner's error. That's what that is. But make sure you consider that when you say, well, we need to tweak the map because of the schools or where the parks are or whatever. The county's changing. It's changing rapidly, and you're not going to figure it out on this map. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more public comment? We'll call the vote on the motion. All in favor of the motion indicate with aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries.
Can I ask a question of Kevin about another piece of
ahead.
information on these maps?
Yes, sir.
This lady back here made a comment about the African-American population, and we are able to tell how many are in the district as drawn. But in all honesty, beyond that, like, if I were trying to tweak this to balance out minority representation in districts, I have no idea where that is. Is there a way to know?
Yes, and I'm going to tell you a worse part of that. We're not sure entirely that the percentage breakdowns don't include some of the omitted prison population.
I'm 100% certain they do. The reason
I was trying to
why-
be nice on that, but it appears.
The Census Bureau data for prison population does not break out by ethnic group. Therefore, I cannot subtract them by ethnic group from any given location because I don't know who they are.
So basically, you're going to have to go up there and look at him block by block with him to try to get as close as we can, but it's going to be skewed in districts 2 and 3 because of that population percentage number.
Well, I guess what I'm asking is this, and I'm sorry, I don't remember your name, but Fisher. She asked that point, and I don't know how to go about, even if we're going to look at these maps again, how to tell. Because I don't, is there such a thing as a map where you can look and you can see, forget about the prison thing, but otherwise that identifies where minorities are going to be?
The census blocks do contain minority information. I cannot pull out minority information from the group quarters data from the areas that are influenced by the prison. But those minority information is included with the
So
census
block by
data.
block, you could do it. You couldn't just look, you have to get granular or go block by block. So it can be done, but it can't be done on a large scale. It has to be done at the very small scale.
Okay.
Okay, so any more questions or comments from the committee? None there. Public comments? So we will next meet on the 18th in Santa Rosa Beach. I don't know if the public is aware, but regarding the county commission, and I don't know if you can speak for the school board, but a date that, anticipated date that they would take up this, adopting one of these maps.
So you're going to make me jinx the process, aren't you, Mr. Chairman? I'm going to assume, very highly and dangerous option, that we finish this on the 18th. If it is finished on the 18th, the BCC will receive it on the December 14th meeting. The school district will receive it at whatever its first meeting in December is as well.
Okay.
I'm trying to pull up the school board meeting dates. It appears their regular meeting is on the 16th of November. If somebody knows that to be untrue, you would need to let me know. Their December meeting calendar is blank, and that's not changed, and I believe that is due to the function of they have an organizational meeting in November. So whatever their first meeting in December is where they'll receive it as well. So December 14th, 2021 would be when the BCC would receive it. And then we'll make sure we get a definitive date for the school district, and we'll converse with the superintendent to make sure they do that, whether they set it as a special meeting or otherwise. I will also say the board has the ability to set a special meeting to hear this, and that is well within their discretion. But the first regularly scheduled board meeting the BCC could hear is December 14th.
Thank you. Well, if there's no further business,